Imagine for a moment the largest invasion in human history. 156,000 soldiers, 5,000 ships. One single day that would decide the fate of the entire world. This is the story of D-Day. By 1944, the Second World War had already lasted almost 5 years. Germany's army, under Adolf Hitler, controlled nearly all of Western Europe. France had fallen years earlier. Millions of people lived under Nazi occupation, waiting, hoping for someone to come and set them free. In England, across the Channel, something enormous was quietly being prepared. For years, American and British leaders had been planning a single, massive operation, a plan so secret that even most of the soldiers involved did not know the details until just days before it happened. This plan was called Operation Overlord. Its goal was simple to describe, but almost impossible to imagine. Land an enormous army onto the beaches of Nazi-occupied France and open a new front that would finally push Hitler's forces back toward Germany itself. The man chosen to lead this massive operation was an American general named Dwight Eisenhower. He carried an almost impossible weight on his shoulders. If this invasion failed, it could set back the entire war for years and cost the lives of tens of thousands of young men. For months, the Allies worked on something almost as important as the invasion itself: deception. They needed the Germans to believe the attack would come somewhere else entirely, far from the actual beaches they had chosen in a region of France called Normandy. They built an entire fake army out of inflatable tanks, wooden airplanes, and fake radio signals, positioned across from a different part of the French coast called Calais. German spies watching from a distance saw what looked like a massive invasion force preparing there instead. This deception worked better than anyone expected. German commanders remained genuinely convinced that Normandy was merely a distraction and that the real invasion would still come through Calais, even weeks after the actual attack had already begun. Weather became another enormous obstacle. The invasion required specific conditions: calm seas, a full moon for visibility, and a particular tide pattern. Only a few days each month offered the right combination, and even then, the weather itself remained completely unpredictable. The invasion was originally planned for June 5, 1944, but as that date approached, a terrible storm swept across the English Channel, with high winds and rough seas that made any landing completely impossible. Eisenhower faced an agonizing decision: delay everything or risk disaster. His chief meteorologist studied the patterns carefully and found something crucial. A brief window of slightly calmer weather was expected to open on June 6th, just barely enough to make the invasion possible, though still incredibly risky. Eisenhower gathered his commanders, weighed the enormous risk, and made the decision that would change history. "Okay, let's go." With those simple words, the largest military operation ever attempted in human history was finally set into motion. That night, before the main invasion even began, thousands of paratroopers boarded airplanes in the darkness. Their mission was to land behind enemy lines in France, securing bridges and roads before the main force arrived on the beaches at dawn. Many of these young men had never jumped into actual combat before. As their planes crossed the Channel in complete darkness, most of them sat in tense silence, some praying quietly, others simply staring out into the black night sky, waiting for the signal to jump. When the signal finally came, they jumped out into the darkness over occupied France, scattered by wind and confusion, many landing far from their intended targets. Despite the chaos, these scattered soldiers regrouped in the darkness and began fighting toward their objectives. As dawn broke on June 6, 1944, the true scale of the operation became visible. 5,000 ships filled the English Channel, stretching farther than the eye could see, carrying tanks, trucks, artillery, and tens of thousands of soldiers toward 5 separate beaches in Normandy. These beaches had been given code names: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. American forces would land at Utah and Omaha, British and Canadian forces at Gold, Juno, and Sword, each facing their own unique dangers along the heavily fortified French coastline. Of all the beaches, Omaha would prove the most brutal. German defenses there were far stronger than expected, positioned on high cliffs overlooking the shore, with machine guns aimed directly down onto the exposed beach below. As American soldiers stepped off their landing crafts into the water, many were struck by gunfire before they even reached the sand. The water itself turned red. Soldiers who survived the initial landing had to crawl forward across open beach with almost no cover at all. For hours, the outcome at Omaha Beach hung in terrible uncertainty. Commanders back on the ships genuinely feared the entire landing might fail completely. But small groups of soldiers, cut off from their officers, began making their own desperate decisions, pushing forward inch by inch. Individual soldiers, sergeants, and junior officers, without clear orders, began organizing small groups to attack the German positions directly, climbing bluffs under fire, destroying machine gun nests one by one, slowly turning the tide of the battle through sheer individual courage. By afternoon, against all odds, American forces had finally secured a foothold on Omaha Beach. The cost had been enormous, but the beach that had nearly become a complete disaster was now firmly in Allied hands. At Utah Beach, things went somewhat more smoothly. Strong currents had actually pushed the landing craft slightly off course, accidentally bringing troops ashore at a location with weaker German defenses than originally planned, an unexpected stroke of fortune amid the chaos. Meanwhile, at the British and Canadian beaches, Gold, Juno, and Sword, soldiers faced their own fierce fighting, but made steady progress inland throughout the day, pushing back German defenders and linking up with paratroopers who had landed hours earlier. Above the beaches, Allied aircraft filled the sky, providing crucial support, bombing German positions and preventing enemy reinforcements from reaching the coast quickly. Without this air support, historians agree the invasion could easily have ended in complete disaster. On the ground in France, ordinary French civilians watched in stunned disbelief as the invasion unfolded around their homes and villages. After 4 long years of Nazi occupation, many could hardly believe that liberation might finally be arriving. Some French civilians risked their own lives to help Allied soldiers, offering directions, hiding wounded men, providing crucial information about German positions nearby. Small acts of extraordinary courage carried out by ordinary people caught in the middle of history. By the end of that single extraordinary day, over 150,000 Allied soldiers had landed on the beaches of Normandy. Nearly 10,000 of them were killed, wounded, or missing, an almost unimaginable cost paid within just 24 hours. Yet, despite this staggering cost, the invasion had succeeded. Allied forces now held a foothold on French soil, a foothold that would grow day after day into an unstoppable advance toward the heart of Nazi Germany itself. In the days that followed, hundreds of thousands more troops, tanks, and supplies poured across the Channel, reinforcing the beachhead and preparing for the long, difficult push inland through the French countryside toward Paris and beyond. News of the invasion spread quickly around the world. In Britain and America, people gathered around radios, listening anxiously for updates. Churches filled with people praying for the soldiers fighting an ocean away. For the first time in years, hope felt genuinely possible. For Adolf Hitler and his generals, D-Day represented something they had desperately hoped to prevent. Their deception had failed, their defenses had been breached, and now, for the first time, Germany faced a genuine second front, squeezed between Allied forces in the west and Soviet forces advancing from the east. Over the following 11 months, Allied forces would slowly, painfully, push their way across France, through Belgium, and eventually into Germany itself, fighting through brutal battles, including the Battle of the Bulge, before finally reaching Berlin. Historians widely agree that without the success of D-Day, the war in Europe could have dragged on for years longer, at an even more devastating human cost. This single day, planned in secret for years and executed at enormous risk, genuinely changed the entire course of world history. Today, the beaches of Normandy remain places of quiet remembrance. Rows of white crosses stretch across peaceful cemeteries, overlooking the very sand where so many young men gave their lives on that single extraordinary morning in June 1944. And so, my friends, the story of D-Day comes quietly to its end. 156,000 soldiers, 5,000 ships, one single impossible day, that together changed the fate of the entire world. Thanks so much for watching. If this story moved you today, please leave a comment below and let me know what part surprised you most. This is Storia English. Until next time, take care of yourself and never stop learning.